Deep within religious beliefs and spiritual traditions, purgatory emerges as a transitional stage between earthly life and eternal salvation. It is not merely a rigid doctrine, but a concept that resonates with the human soul, carrying the hope of forgiveness and purification. In this mysterious realm, souls cleanse themselves of their burdens, restore balance to their spiritual accounts, and prepare to enter divine light. But is purgatory solely a Christian concept? Or is it a reflection of a universal longing for divine justice and a second chance? From Buddhist teachings to ancient Chinese rituals, from theological scriptures to works of fiction, this idea has deep roots across different cultures. Join us on a journey through time and belief systems as we uncover the mysteries of purgatory and its profound impact on the human spirit and society. Purgatory, the condition, process, or place of purification or temporary punishment in which, according to medieval Christian and Roman Catholic belief, the souls of those who die in a state of grace are made ready for heaven. Purgatory, Latin purgatorium, from purgare to purge, has come to refer as well to a wide range of historical and modern conceptions of post-mortem suffering short of everlasting damnation. Purgatory in world religions. The idea of purification or temporary punishment after death has ancient roots and is well attested in early Christian literature. The conception of purgatory as a geographically situated place is largely the achievement of medieval Christian piety and imagination. Beliefs and practices relating to purgatory profoundly affected Western society in the Middle Ages and beyond, as the focus of a complex system of suffrages, intercessory prayers, masses, alms, and fasting on behalf of the dead. Penitential practices and indulgences, purgatory strengthened the bond between the living and the dead, provided motivation for works of social philanthropy, as well as for pilgrimages and crusades, and furnished abundant matter for visionary and imaginative literature. In general, the origins of purgatory may be sought in the worldwide practice of praying for the dead and caring for their needs. Such ministrations presuppose that the dead are in a temporal state between earthly life and their final abode, and that they can benefit from the generosity or transferred merit of the living. Purgatory answers the human need to believe in a just and merciful cosmos, one in which ordinary people, neither hardened sinners nor perfect saints, may undergo correction, balance life's accounts, satisfy old debts, cleanse accumulated defilements, and heal troubled memories. Since these are universal concerns, there are parallels to the Christian conception of purgatory in many religious and cultural traditions. According to classical Buddhism, for example, rebirth in any of the 6 realms, whether as a god, human, demigod, asura, animal, hungry ghost, or hell being, is a temporary state conditioned by the character of the intentional actions performed in a person's past lives, karma, donations to a monastic community, altruistic practice of spiritual disciplines, and good deeds are ways of generating merit that may be dedicated to relieving the purgatorial suffering of beings imprisoned in sorrowful rebirths or in transit between lives. In medieval Chinese Buddhism, the classical Buddhist understanding of rebirth and transfer of merit merged with traditional practices and beliefs concerning the veneration of ancestors and the placation of potentially troublesome ghosts. The Aids Chinese Buddhist afterworld is perceived as an imperial bureaucracy in which the deceased is subjected to a series of trials whose outcome depends largely upon the offerings made by family members. The monastic community, as a field of merit for lay donors, serves an intermediary function. The popularity of the annual Ghost Festival, rite in which offerings are made to ancestral ghosts, as well as the persistence of other seasonal, domestic and esoteric rites for the care and feeding of the dead, demonstrates that responsibility for beings in purgatory is an enduring preoccupation of Chinese society, as it is in other East Asian cultures. Christian traditions. Among Christians, the biblical warrant for purgatory is contested. Supporters of the Roman Catholic belief cite biblical passages in which there are intimations of the three major components of purgatory: prayer for the dead, an active interim state between death and resurrection, and a purifying fire after death. These texts yield a consistent notion of purgatory, however, only when viewed from the standpoint of the formal Roman Catholic doctrine, which was defined at the Councils of Lyon, 1274, Ferrara, Florence, 1438-45, and Trent, 1545-63, after a prolonged period of development by lay Christians and theologians. Origins of the doctrine. The concept of purgatory finds support in both scriptural and non-scriptural traditions. One of the earliest indications of this belief comes from the well-documented Christian practice of praying for the dead. This practice was encouraged by the account in 2 Maccabees 12:41-46, rejected by Protestants as apocryphal, where Judas Maccabeus, a Jewish leader, makes atonement for his fallen soldiers' idolatry through prayers and a monetary sin offering on their behalf. Other scriptural references include the Apostle Paul's prayer for Onesiphorus, 2 Timothy 1:18, and the implication in Matthew 12:32 that sins may be forgiven in the afterlife. Additionally, the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, Luke 16:19-26, and Christ's words to the repentant thief on the cross, Luke 23:43, are often cited as evidence of an intermediate state between death and the final judgment. Related non-canonical tradition suggests that Christ, on Holy Saturday, descended into the realm of the dead to liberate Adam, Eve, and the biblical patriarchs, implying a temporary state of imprisonment after death. Some Christian writers describe purgatory as a realm of intelligent fire, which not only torments the damned, but also tests and purifies those in need of cleansing. 1 Corinthians 3:11-15. This concept has parallels in rabbinic literature, particularly in the Babylonian Talmud, which speaks of post-mortem purification. The idea of divine fire is further reinforced by Hebrews 12:29, which states that God himself is a consuming fire. However, views on purgatory have varied. Some theologians, such as Origen, c. 185c. 254, and Saint Gregory of Nyssa, c. 335c. 394, considered the possibility that all souls might eventually be purified through divine fire, a belief reflected in Zoroastrian eschatology. In contrast, St. Augustine, 354-430, distinguished between purgatorial fire, which cleanses souls destined for salvation, and the everlasting fire that punishes the unrepentant. Pope Gregory I, reigned 590-604, further elaborated on purgatory, viewing its fire as an extension of redemptive suffering beyond the grave. While he encouraged offering masses for suffering souls, he, like Augustine, emphasized that one's ultimate fate, salvation or damnation, is determined at death, with only those destined for heaven passing through purgatory. Development of the tradition. The idea of purgatory was reinforced through visionary literature and reports of near-death experiences. Texts like The Passion of Saints Perpetua and Felicity, 3rd century, and later accounts by Gregory the Fir, Bede, 672, 673, 735, and other Christian authors supported the notion that the dead could undergo purification and benefit from the prayers and intercessions of the living. In Western Christianity, the doctrine of canonical penance developed alongside purgatory, based on the belief that even forgiven sins required temporal punishment. Those unable to complete their penance in life were thought to do so after death. The medieval church introduced Indulgences, which allowed remission of such punishments through the treasury of merits. The accumulated merits of Christ and the saints. Living believers could also offer suffrages, such as prayers and masses, to alleviate the suffering of souls in purgatory. By the early 11th century, the Benedictine Abbey of Cluny institutionalized All Souls' Day, a feast dedicated to praying for the deceased. This further popularized devotion to souls in purgatory and gave rise to folk traditions, such as English mumming plays, the offering of soul cakes, small cakes exchanged for prayers for the dead, and bonfires lit in remembrance of lost souls. These customs bore similarities to the Chinese Ghost Festival, in which the living seek to aid and honor the dead. A parallel practice in Judaism, the recitation of the Kaddish prayer for the dead, emerged in the 12th century among Ashkenazi communities in the Rhineland. The concept of purgatory as a physical place gained traction in the 12th century, influenced by medieval visionary literature and tales of St. Patrick's Purgatory, a cave-like entrance to purgatory on an island in Ireland. Even in 1220, the Cistercian monk Caesarius of Heisterbach suggested that purgatory could exist in multiple locations at once. However, it was Dante Alighieri, 1265-21, who solidified the imagery of purgatory in his Divine Comedy. In Purgatorio, he depicted the afterlife's second kingdom as a 7-story mountain opposite Jerusalem, blending theology, Ptolemaic cosmology, and moral philosophy to illustrate the gradual purification of the human soul. Purgatory's themes have also appeared in later literature, including Shakespeare's Hamlet, 1603, the British folk ballad A Lyke-Wake Dirge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge's The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, 1797-98, John Henry Newman's The Dream of Gerontius, 1865, and Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol. Non-Catholic and modern perspectives. Despite its historical prominence, the doctrine of purgatory remains controversial. While Eastern Orthodox Christians uphold the tradition of praying for the dead, they generally reject the Roman Catholic understanding of purgatory, viewing it as an innovation tied to an unjust penitential system. For Protestant reformers of the 16th century, the Church's sale of indulgences epitomized the corruption of medieval Catholicism and the false notion of works righteousness, the belief that salvation could be earned through good deeds. As a result, most Protestant traditions abandon the concept of purgatory, and only a few modern Protestant theologians have defended it. In societies where Protestantism became dominant, the idea of purgatory was reinvented by Swedenborgian, spiritualist, theosophical, and New Age movements. These perspectives reinterpreted purgatory as a mental or spiritual realm of self-improvement rather than a place of punishment. Contemporary Roman Catholic teaching, while reaffirming the traditional doctrine, has moved away from the imagery of torment and fire. Instead, it emphasizes that souls in purgatory, assured of their ultimate salvation, willingly undergo purification in preparation for the beatific vision, the direct experience of God in heaven.